Good afternoon, and you're very welcome to the program. You're listening to SIRAJ ZAIDI until 4 o'clock, and India time 9:30. And indeed, wherever you in the world are tuning me in, set your clocks until the program finishes. Today's program, as you can imagine, is packed with the kind of commotion that has been going on in the world. We are living in a times of Third World War. Somebody has used the word already, and therefore I am using it as well. So, सुनने वालों को सिराज ज़ैदी का बहुत बहुत प्यार भरा आदाब, नमस्कार, and good afternoon. And still Ramzan Mubarak, Holi Mubarak. This is another festival of Holi, and I shall be playing some Holi songs today, and I shall be talking about the Ramadan and the catastrophic situation in the world in the wake of the killing of the Ayatollah Khamenei and the Iran war with the Israel and US war, with imposed war on Iran. So that is something that is going to be dominating the show today, like everybody else, talking about it in a great length. And so do I, because there's so much to talk about it. There's so much to say. But what I'm going to talk about is something that nobody has actually is covering, and is only lopsided, one-sided argument, and Reuters fed, partial news about the entire thing leading up to the attack on Ayatollah Khamenei in his office in Tehran, along with the 200-odd students, girls' students in a girls' school that has been destroyed and all that. Imagine if that would have been the case by some other people. Even, say, for instance, Russians would have hit the Ukrainian girls' school. So this is a law of jungle is operating as usual. But we'll look into it all, and let's see what Charmaine has to say about everything else. So the news is here, and Charmaine has some interesting points to talk about it, and in the context of what is there for the listeners. So sit back, relax, and listen to what Charmaine has to say.
Good afternoon, I'm Charmaine Colvin, and you are listening to Apna Radio 93.9 Dublin South FM. On India this week, Russia is prepared to divert oil to India to offset Middle East supply disruptions, with about 9.5 million barrels of Russian crude in vessels near Indian waters, and able to arrive within weeks, according to an industry source. India is vulnerable to supply shocks, with crude stocks covering only about 25 days of demand, while refiners hold similarly limited inventories of gas oil, gasoline and liquefied petroleum gas. The disruption has immediate market consequences, with about 40% of India's crude imports moving through the Strait of Hormuz, the world's most vital export route. And the near closure of the route has compelled the number 3 oil consumer to seek alternatives. Indian refiners process about 5.6 million barrels per day of crude. The strait has become inaccessible after vehicles were struck by Iranian attacks that followed US and Israeli strikes on Iran-based targets that commenced on Saturday. India's imports of Russian crude fell to about 1.1 million barrels per day in January, the lowest since November 22, as New Delhi sought relief from US tariffs, pushing Moscow's share of overall oil imports down to 21.2%. The source said the shares climbed back up to around 30% in February. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has called for parties involved in the war in Iran to de-escalate hostilities quickly, and said while he supports the strikes, it is a position he takes with regret. Carney, speaking to reporters in Sydney, his second stop on an Indo-Pacific tour, said of Iran that Canada has long supported the imperative of neutralising this grave global threat. In Sydney, Carney also faced questions about his conversations with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi earlier this week. He described those discussions as frank. Prior to the trip, a Canadian official suggested India is no longer linked to violent crimes or threats on Canadian soil. However, some Canadian Sikhs reject the government assessment, saying they still face threats from India, which Delhi denies. Carney added that high-ranking Canadian officials have been in contact with top Indian defence and national security officials from the moment that we re-established a dialogue at the leader level with India. Under Carney, the two governments are trying to repair ties that were strained when his predecessor, Justin Trudeau, publicly accused Delhi of a link to the 2023 assassination of Sikh separatist and Canadian citizen Hardeep Singh Nijjar in the province of British Columbia. India vociferously rejected the allegation by Trudeau. Trade and diplomatic relations almost came to a standstill as both sides expelled each other's diplomats and cancelled visa services. Canada hosts a huge expatriate Indian community. The case of 4 men charged over Nijjar's killing is still before the courts in British Columbia. This week, Canada and India also announced a landmark nuclear energy deal, as well as other deals on critical minerals, space, defence and education. India's Supreme Court has threatened legal consequences after a judge was found to have adjudicated on a property dispute using fake judgments generated by artificial intelligence. The top court, which was responding to an appeal by the defendants, will now examine the ruling given by the lower court in the southern state of Andhra Pradesh. The Supreme Court called the case a matter of institutional concern and said fake AI-generated judgments had a direct bearing on integrity of adjudicatory process. The incident had made headlines, becoming the latest in a series of instances where AI has disrupted court proceedings in India and elsewhere in the world. The problems in the case of Andhra Pradesh arose in August last year when a junior civil judge in the trial court in Vijayawada city passed an order in a case about a disputed property. The court had previously assigned an official to survey the property and file a report, which the defendants in the case objected to. The judge dismissed their objection, citing 4 past legal judgments, all of which were later found to be AI-generated. The defendants challenged the order in the state's High Court, pointing out that the cited orders were fake. The High Court acknowledged this but accepted that the junior civil judge had made the error in good faith and went on to agree with the trial court's decision anyway. The defendants appealed again, taking the matter to the Supreme Court, which was less forgiving about the impact of AI. Coming down sternly against the fake judgments, the top court last Friday stayed the lower court's order on the property dispute. It said the use of AI while making judgments was simply not an error in decision-making, but an act of misconduct. Last year, the Supreme Court published a white paper on AI in India's judiciary, in which it listed best practices as well as guidelines for AI use by judicial institutions, lawyers and clerks. The court stressed the need for human oversight and the importance of keeping institutional safeguards firmly in place. India will need to play with clarity and calmness to combat England's deep and powerful batting lineup in the T20 World Cup cricket semi-final at the Wankhede Stadium, the host bowling coach Morn Morkel said on Wednesday. India, bidding to become the first team to successfully defend the T20 World Cup title, meet 2-time champions England today in the last 4 for the 3rd straight tournament, with each team winning one of the previous games. And finally, millions of people are celebrating Holi, the festival of colours in India and across the world. The spring festival, which celebrates the victory of good over evil, also marks the end of winter. People offer prayers, smear bright colours on family and friends, and eat traditional food and sweets to celebrate. They also gather on the streets and throw colours on each other. Holi is based on the Hindu legend of Holika, a female demon who tries to kill her nephew, Prahlad, because he worships the Hindu god Vishnu. But Prahlad miraculously survives the burning fire, even as Holika is consumed by the flames. And that's all from me. You have been listening to Apna Radio 93.9 Dublin South FM.
Thank you very much indeed, Charmaine, for the beautiful news that you have put together. And indeed, it's as I said, it's a holiday season for a lot of people. The Holi is here. Ramzan is still going on, and the spring is here. That's the main powerful season, in fact. And I'll talk about that what brings the seasons a change of mood. And those people who do not around us in this spring and who did not survive the winter of discontent that we had are no longer with us, including the martyrs who were at this present war. Today we are talking about the 6th day of the war between Iran and the US and the Israel. Now, those who do know are old enough to understand the Iran's capacity to continue the war. 11 years they fought the war single-handedly against the neighbor Saddam Hussein, which was backed by the entire globe world. British, Europe, US, everybody backed Saddam Hussein with weapons, money, and all that. Iran sustained that war for 11 years. So please don't underestimate the capacity of Iran to run away or stop just because Mark Carney has said in Australia or obviously the Donald Trump doesn't have a stomach to say that. He's basically is a stupid, unliterate, uneducated person, pedophile, and similarly he had people like Modi with him and people like Netanyahu, who are equally aggressive towards now. Was the Netanyahu's project for years and years, ever since he came into power 40 years ago. He came and he was every time out of context, doesn't matter where he's saying, Iran, 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 Iran. That's what is on his mind, that obviously he was preoccupied with Palestine and he was trying to destroy Gaza and West Bank. And then once he flattened the whole thing, next he quickly, pushed the stupid American person, because he is the one who is the most imbecile, low-class mentality guy who has absolutely no brain, no education, nothing, and a very, very, very dirty background of, pedophiles with Jeffrey Epstein. And in order to hide the Epstein things, he quickly moved on to this war thing that people have not forgotten the Epstein file. People are recovering the kind of pictures that he had with little girls involved with sexual act and all the rest of it. So this is something, he is the most despicable individual on earth, exist on earth. Now, talking about that, you do know that Iran has got his own political structure. Last program I did described the whole governing system of Iran called the Vilayat-e-Faqih, the whole system of, unlike Donald Trump's, brain, which is the less than size of the pea, understands neither he understand the Shia religion, nor he understands the Vilayat-e-Faqih, nor he understands anything about that. He thinks that he's a head of a state has been taken out, I got him first, he wanted to kill me, and I got him first. He thinks that he is a Venezuelan, president or any head of a state. Head of a state doesn't matter. He was the spiritual leader of not only Iran, but the entire globe. People followed him all the way here to Dublin in Ireland. And I will be talking to the Iranian ambassador sometime soon. Perhaps we'll bring it in the program and then talk about it. And then to explain to that, the point that our own media, including RTE, is completely missing it. And they are following the usual, the nonsense which has been fed to them by the Reuters, because they don't have educated people or qualified people to analyze, to contact people like, the active people who have practiced Vilayat-e-Faqih and the connection of Vilayat-e-Faqih in Dublin, in Ireland, at the Husseiniya Ahl al-Bayt Islamic Centre in Milltown. Now, those are the right people they should be contacting to talk about Iran war with Israel and America. No, they have bypassed completely. They're talking to some nonsense people, some ridiculously misinformed people, and just blaring the one side of the story, which is basically the American version, making Ayatollah Khamenei, the spiritual head of the global Muslim community, as a villain, because they are very good at creating villain. Oh, he's the most evil man. He's the most evil man. The axis of evil is Israel and America. And in this clip, what I'm going to play is clearly talk about this particular thing, that U.S. and Israel is the people who are the axis of evil. What they have done is that's what they're talking about it. So sit back, relax, and listen to this particular very informed U.S. U.S. personnel who has talking about it. Because criticism is in U.S. as well as here around the world. So sit back, relax, and see this, please.
The madmen in charge in the United States have brought us into this. They are systematically destroying our country as they are destroying the Middle East. It's very, very serious. If you ask why do the roads not work and the bridges not work in the United States, why is infrastructure falling to pieces, why are living standards stagnant or declining, it's because we spend trillions of dollars in war. Trump, let me add, is an utter disgrace to our nation. He lied to us every word about America first. His whole premise was we're not going to do this. And he did exactly the opposite of what he said. He did exactly the opposite of what the American people say. Of course, Congress is dead for all intents and purposes. Doesn't matter whether it's Johnson or Schumer, they're useless, these people. They're all in the Zionist lobby payroll. They have squandered our wealth. They have squandered our strength. They have diverted our attention from our elevators and our escalators and our roads and our power grid and all the things that make life viable for us, our housing stock, everything, to divert our trillions of dollars to this madness that is underway right now.
Now, that is absolutely putting, in a nutshell, the madness which is understood. Now, the same kind of madness is going on in India by Modi, because he is a number one liar. He is the one who came into power. And these two individuals came into power with treachery, with thuggery, with sort of like a, that kind of force of pushing themselves into power by creating and complete, using money as a vehicle to come into power. Anyway, that's another day's chapter, because we will talk about that, how the shape of democracy today's world. Now, dare they do know anything about the kind of democracy that Iran has, and Iran will continue to have in their dreams, this regime change nonsense that they're talking about. There's no such thing like regime change. It's not Iraq. Even in Iraq, the more deadly regime came, it is the whole pan-American dream that the regime change of their puppet regime, the likes of in Syria, they have got their own people, likes of in UAE or in Saudi, somebody, or in Qatar, somebody who is a lackey of their version, that they lick to the Americans, and whatever the Americans would say, they'll do like leopard dogs. Now, no, this particular regime is a different regime. It's under Vilayat-e-Faqih, which is the Guardian Council. You have layers and layers upon layers of army, and they're so well organized that losing few thousand people in war and destruction of few houses and buildings would not affect their political system, their legal system, their political system, and their system of Vilayat-e-Faqih. Quickly, Rahbar will be replaced, the spiritual leader will be replaced by somebody person. And indeed, those people who have, those who have actually betrayed the system, been caught. There's an army general who's been caught by leaking that information, perhaps got few millions from the Zionist people to, the location of Ayatollah Khamenei, Rahbar, the leader, spiritual leader of the world, Shia leader, and Shia and Muslims, Sunni, all over the world. Some Sunnis also follow that, and so therefore, but primarily in India, particularly in my region of Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh, and South India, Mumbai, there are massive rallies are going on at the moment in the support and commemoration. Now, 3 days mourning has been declared. In Iran, the funeral will take place on Friday. and the country will, billions and millions will turn up. 900 million people will be turning up on the street to attend the funeral. This will be some scene which will be covered by helicopters and all that, and he will be laid to rest in Mashhad, the holy city of Mashhad, where the 8th Imam of Shia, Imam Raza, laid, and there's a massive holy shrine of Imam Raza in Mashhad, city of Mashhad. So that's where they're going to bury. Funeral will take place on Friday, but from tomorrow, in fact, and the last 3 days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, the 3-day mourning has been declared, and of course the war will continue. And what is also been wrongly understood by the fact that it has been called, that they're breaking up the neighboring Muslim thing and all the rest of it. They only said that categorically, crystal clear. We cannot reach to the America across Atlantic with our weapons, but we will hit the American targets in the region. So they are going after the American targets, whether they have bases in Qatar. Saudi Arabia's embassy has been hit in Riyadh. And all the Americans, Aramco, which is an American firm, oil refinery in Saudi, this has been hit. All the other interest in the region, Bahrain has been hit, Kuwait has been hit. These are the places where the Americans are, and of course Dubai, the hotel which you have seen burning like a towering inferno. That hotel was used by CIA. It was owned and built by CIA. So these sort of so-called Muslims, neighbors of Iran, and friendly country as they call them, were allowed the Americans to actually dig down their bases in and around Iran. So they have encircled Iran, but Iran knew exactly where to hit all these Americans. They have they made it absolutely politically clear. We are not after the people, innocent civilians of those countries. We respect and taking care of the very careful hitting the targets, the American targets which are situated in and around the Middle East, because they have turned the Middle East into a big brothel as well. As you know that these bases means nothing but the women from Russia, women from America, women from Europe has been shipped into the Dubai, and Dubai has become the haven for the people who have, part and parcel of so-called the American interest in that region. Now, here in Ireland, obviously, unfortunately, a lot of people do understand the holiday spots, Dubai, good hotel, cheap sun, cheap food, good quality value food and sun hotels, all that. So we do have a traditional, the holiday makers going to, UAE, Dubai and all that. And they've been actually flown back home, just like UK, with a chartered flight. So our good wishes and our basically, see, people, especially the country people from Roscommon and all these places, they have no clue about the geopolitical reality of the region. They just buy the ticket and hop on the plane of Dubai and Abu Dhabi, Etihad, or 3 times a week where we have now the flights of Dubai flights, of Emirates and all that, and off they go and check into the hotel and enjoy whatever. But do they know that the region is engulfed by the geopolitical crisis? Now, that is something that we must understand, educate ourselves, teach our people. They never go to Iran for holiday, for God's sake. Why? Because they have created this perception. Oh, it's an oppressive regime, run by mullahs, run by religious. What the hell do you know about them? Have you ever been to? I've been to Iran several times on the invitation of the conferences, and the most hospitable people, the most polite people on earth are the Iranian people, and because of their culture and the civilization. Yes, also they have a good food. They also have got good quality hotels and all that. But no, Irish people would not go there, because they are afraid. They don't understand anything. So please do read, make development, their organization. Tara O'Grady runs one organization, Friends of Iran and all that. Meet them, discuss with them over a coffee, and then see for yourself. A lot of journalists from the Irish Times and a lot of journalists have been to Iran and at the behest of the government of Iran, just to show and to write. Our religious correspondent, what's his name, who's also a good acquaintance of mine, Patsy McGarry, who writes for the Irish Times, been to Iran, and they came back with praises. Now, the point I'm trying to actually say is that because the Ayatollah Khamenei was a religious head, he was like a pope. Imagine if you hit the Vatican and you say, "Oh, I've got rid of the Pope because he's the head of the religious, head of the country." Yes, Vatican is an independent state, and you imagine that. That's the kind of parallel we're talking about it. But nobody is talking about that in the press, in the media, because they have no clue. They don't know how to juxtapose the reality of these things. Anyway, I've got another interesting clip to play, and that is by George Galloway. Now, George Galloway, as you know, is a Scottish MP in England, and he has got a very, very interesting way of talking about things. And so therefore, I'm going to play this clip, and I hope you will like it because this is talking about the reality. Sit back, relax, and listen to this.
Ali Khamenei was at home in his residence, knowing he was being hunted down by the United States, knowing he was being targeted by death. He was surrounded by fellow shaheeds who also knew that they were going to die, but they also understood that there was a purpose in their death, because by dying, they entered into martyrdom. And the Iranian people are in the streets, but they're not shouting death to Khamenei. They're shouting long live the martyr Khamenei. That's why we lost the war on day one. This was a trap set by the Iranians on day one by a people of faith. Donald Trump wouldn't even know what a Shia is or what a Twelver is. He doesn't know who Hussein is. He doesn't know who Ali is. He has no clue what the Battle of Karbala is. And yet he fell into a trap where all of this is relevant. He assassinated or facilitated the murder of the second most important man in the Shia faith, Ali Khamenei. This is the equivalent of killing the Pope if you're Catholic, killing the Archbishop of Canterbury if you're British, killing the head of the Orthodox Church, Kirill, if you are Russian. And Donald Trump doesn't understand this. If the purpose of this operation was to get the Iranian people in the street, Donald Trump succeeded. But he got the wrong people in the street for the wrong cause. The people of Iran today are rallying in support of the Islamic Republic. The Islamic Republic is invincible at this moment because you can't kill people who are ready to die for their cause. And the Shia of Iran who are defending the Islamic Republic are prepared to a man, to a woman, to become martyrs in the cause of their faith. And it is the Islamic Republic of Iran that they are defending, not just their land, not just their culture, not just their history, but their faith. Donald Trump lost this war, the first missile.
Now, first missile, and Donald Trump lost this war. Obviously, the war is gone. But now, where India stands, because India has been actually betrayed Iran this time around. India and Iran had got a historical relationship under the previous regime of Congress, cordial relationship, great trade ties with crude oil and everything. In fact, the amount of favors that Iran has done to India is innumerable because of the close ties with the Shia population of India, which is about 22 million to 25 million throughout India, and also the greater, consequences of a cordial relationship, historical relationship between India. Now, all of that is being betrayed, is being severed by the Modi government. BJP came into power. In fact, Modi traveled and met Ayatollah Khamenei, and those who understood his early days of his frantic travel the world, 14 or 15 country in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, that somebody made a joke. Oh, there's another country beside it. Let's go there. He came to Ireland as well for a day. But that time he went to Iran. He saw what Iran like. He met Ayatollah Khamenei, went to his office, and two-faced man. He's a munafiq. Munafiq is the word which is something else in the heart and something else in the face. So he goes around shaking hands and hugging people, but underneath he is the most devious snake you can ever meet, because the way he is, and that's the way it is. So anyway, let's listen to what Sharad has put together, and Sharad has got a beautiful analysis put together about the current situation. So Sharad, you take it away.
So much is going on in the world, and it is crisis all over, fast moving, and nobody knows in what direction it will go. But then during the time of crisis, like any other crisis, we get to see a pattern, we get to see a trend that actually defines the character of the country, the character of the leadership. And today we are going to talk about the character of India that is coming to the forefront. Today we will talk about the character of the Indian leadership that is coming to the forefront. So nations do not decline or grow in one single stroke. They decline in a pattern, in contradictions, in quite policy shift that appears technical, but then reveal a deeper strategic autonomy. Over the past few years, India has taken a series of decisions that, when, if you examine individually, may be defended as practical, as pragmatic, but when you stitch together, they raise a serious, sharper question. Is India acting in its sovereign interest or drifting into dependency under the language of reform and global integration? Now, these question marks we have to raise for every policy that is being discussed today, because there are surprises. I'm going to talk about 5 or 6 of them. Leave it to the judgment of my dear audience whether there is a leadership, as we call it, the Vishwaguru. All of a sudden, the oil diplomacy between India and rest of the world, it has moved from discount to dependence. Now let me explain what that means. After the Ukraine conflict began in 2022, India increased its purchase of discounted crude oil from Russia. Before 2022, Russian oil formed less than 2% of India's import. By mid-2023, it accounted for nearly 35 to 40% of total crude imports. The consequence was that India saved billions. Estimates suggest that discounted Russian crude oil allowed refiners to improve margins, and that in turn helped India avoid the inflation. Although on ground the inflation stays where it is, but inflation due to oil was arrested. It was prevented. Now, India imports more than 85% of the crude requirement. Therefore, if you look at the oil, the energy, it is a matter of survival. It is not a matter of ideology. We have to buy oil from outside countries. Now, signals indicate that India will reduce or completely stop Russian purchases and instead buy more oil from United States. American crude is typically more expensive, obviously, due to its logistic and the price that Trump is putting on India. So why abandon a cost advantage in a developing economy like India, where the fuel inflation hits the poorest the hardest? The direct cost implication of a higher oil prices comes on a kilo of onions and vegetables. So why is the government doing it? Also, India's foreign exchange reserve hovers around $600 billion. Now, oil import costs around $150 billion. So even a $5 to $10 per barrel difference over millions of barrels compound into billions. So why is the Indian government stopping the cheaper, inexpensive Russian oil and buying the expensive United States oil? All this shift has happened in the latest US-India trade deal, which I would like to call as Trump-Modi deal. Very surprising, but it is so. The other one is the HPV vaccine drive. And this is despite the dark history and the tragedy in Andhra and Gujarat some 10 years ago. So what is HPV? It is a kind of virus which India wants to fight. As it is, there are few cases, but then all of a sudden, India has approved a nationwide push for the vaccination for girls, young girls. And who are the advocates for this vaccine drive? Sudha Murthy, supported by Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Now, in today's time, when everything has come out in open about the character, the intention of Bill Gates, Indian government is not only just stopping the intervention of Gates Foundation, there is not even a scrutiny about why Bill Gates Foundation is interested so much with the HPV vaccination for young girls in India. The reference is in 2009 to 2010, a demonstration project on the young girl lives of India for HPV vaccination was carried out in Andhra Pradesh and Gujarat. And it was supported by PATH, NGO, but funded by Gates Foundation, same Bill Gates, who is today tainted. And that led to a controversy after the reports of adverse events and death of these tribal girls. They were guinea pigs, sorry to say that. There were inquiries and only to find that there were lapses. So my question is, after 15 years, why is India suddenly approving under the aegis of the Prime Minister of India and the Bill Gates Foundation and supported and advocated by Sudha Murthy, suddenly bringing HPV vaccination to India without having a clear data transparency, and why the government is not discussing such an enormous program for vaccination in Parliament? India has become a laboratory for an external foundation. Why? Why all of a sudden? Then I want to bring another factor that has happened suddenly. On one hand, cow protection politics have dominated public disclosure for last 15 years. Mob lynching were carried out on suspicion of beef consumption, and that has occurred in several states. People have been killed. Innocents have been killed. While on the other hand, India remains the largest exporter of meat, cattle meat, let's say that. And it is commonly referred to as beef in trade statistics. Now, this holy cow has been touched by 200 artificial insemination centers reportedly to be created in state of Maharashtra. And again, who is doing it? Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So they are being overly supported, overly given access to the touchy and the religious issues of cows in India, beef in India. If the cows is a sacred political rhetoric in India, why large-scale meat export is tolerated, and why indigenous breeds are symbolically put into a cattle lab for crossbreeding, for genetic manipulation by none other than Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation? There has to be questions on that. Another surprise that has come in is the appointment of Rothschild and Company as independent advisor of IPO of National Stock Exchange. Now, Rothschild is a storied European investment banking family firm with over 200 years of history. They had bullets and bandages in a war. They were fighting on both sides. They were profiting on both sides. They were profiting on both sides of the war. They have advised governments, structured sovereign debts, and operated across geopolitical fault lines. So my concern is not mythological, it is about India's sovereignty. Why? Because India's National Stock Exchange is one of the largest exchanges in the world by derivatives volume. It is the pillar of India's financial infrastructure. And the strategic financial architecture is going to be advised by foreign private entity which has deep global entanglements which are questionable. India has capable domestic institutions like SBI Capitals or Axis Capital. So if India's independence in capital market is not a priority and there is an import of a foreign advisor for the Indian capital market, there has to be questions to be raised. And the amount of data that the National Stock Exchange will pass on to the Rothschild is going to be a question of India's financial sovereignty. Questions must be raised. Why all of a sudden? The other story is about PFAS, which is a forever chemical. Now, this chemical is found in many items of daily consumption and it is dangerous. It stays in the body for a very long time. It has created havoc in the environment for decades. Now, the story goes, in Italy, there was a public outrage over PFAS contamination, leading to the plant closure and stricter environmental enforcement. Yet, reports suggest that the production facilities linked to such chemical operations have been relocated to countries with more pervasive regulatory environment like India. Now we know that India already faces severe pollution burden. 14 of the 20 most polluted cities in the world are in India. Groundwater is contaminated. It is affecting billions. And Indian government has allowed relocation of this polluting PFAS plant into Maharashtra, into Vidarbha in India. Now, development does not mean becoming a dumping ground of some modern European developed countries. European citizens demand clean water and air, so they are shifting all the pollution into India. Now, what is going to be the cost? Is Indian lives cheap? is Indian life less consequential than the European lives? The question is, why has the Indian government all of a sudden allowed to dismantle an Italian company which is known for contamination into India? The other big story that has come all of a sudden is the agreement between Starlink, yes, Elon Musk's company called Starlink, and your Aadhaar card. Now, India has built one of the largest biometric database through Aadhaar. It has all the details of your banking, personal details, age, profile, caste. Now you will have a caste census also. Your telecom, everything is there on that Aadhaar. And it is managed by Unique Identification Authority of India. 1.3 billion people data is sitting on Aadhaar. Now there is an agreement between Starlink, Elon Musk company, to operate in India for data validation and digital infrastructure partnership. We do not have a data privacy and data governance act in India. We have spoken about this earlier also. And now everything is moving to an American company, to outside India. How many American citizens' biometric or financial authentication data is held or processed by Indian entities? Tell me. The answer would be negligible. This agreement is a direct hit on India's national security in 21st century. Why is Elon Musk allowed to have hands on India's Aadhaar card and data sovereignty? Why it was not discussed in parliament? The other story I would like to conclude is the silence on Iran. The Indian Prime Minister has not given any reaction, for that matter, any government official or government from the Foreign Ministry, Defense Ministry has given any reaction to the situation in Iran. Iran had been a long-term friend of India. Iran and India had civilizational ties. Ayatollah Khamenei had ties from Lucknow in India. Whether it was the government of Congress or the BJP, India had been a friend of Iran over a period of time, not only as a friend of civilization, but a strategic partner in the region. And then Iran's leadership is assassinated. Indian Prime Minister is silent. There are civilian casualties. 168 young children, girls, are killed in a strike by Israel and US, and India is silent. India is called Vishwaguru, the moral voice. It is supposed to be the moral authority, but then it has failed miserably. Why? Whether it was Chabahar port project, which symbolized strategic cooperation between India and Iran, or whether it was Iran's stance on Kashmir, or it was former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee's stance on Iran, they all have fell silent because the current government and the current leadership of India is silent. The question is why? Now I want to take you all connecting the threads to these 7 points I just spoke. There is a pattern. They are not isolated incidents. India's shifting towards American dependence. India's handover of public health to Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. India's agriculture and genetic handover to a foreign philanthropic non-government organization. India's financial advisory trusted to Rothschild. India's industry absorbing the pollution of the Europe. India's digital infrastructure is open to foreign actors. Why has it happened suddenly? Because Epstein files have come into play. All these decisions have played suddenly because India's top leadership, top business leadership, top ministerial leadership, their names have appeared in Epstein files. And that is how the threads of governance, the threads of foreign influence, specifically from Israel and from America, have led to the decisions impacting the population of India. India is silent, not because it doesn't believe in Iran, because they are told to not speak about Iran. Indian leadership is not representative of the Israel's position on Iran. In fact, there are more Shia Muslims in India than the entire population of Israel. So when it comes to Iran, when it comes to Ayatollah, Indian government ought to speak against the assassination of head of the state by moral dignity, by moral responsibility, and if they wanted ever to be the leader of the world on grounds of moral authority. Somebody else is pulling the strings of India, and we know that Epstein files are consequential. So India reveals a deeper surrender of its strategic policy. Lots of question marks on the Indian government. We will continue to follow these stories. We'll continue to join and stitch all the abrupt decisions that this government is taking, especially after Epstein files have been released. I leave you until next week. Stay safe, stay informed, dutifully ask questions. At the end of the day, someone has to stand up. Bye for now.
Dublin South FM.
You wouldn't buy a car without knowing its history. So why would you buy a story without knowing who's telling it? Come here and I tell you. It's not always easy to verify what you see, read or hear. But now there's help. Visit www.bemediasmart.ie. Stop, think, check. Be Media Smart. Brought to you by Media Literacy Ireland, supported by RTE.
93.9 Dublin South FM.
Welcome back to the program, and what a beautiful analysis, what an accurate, to-the-point analysis that, Sharath, you have actually put together. Yes, I am from Lucknow, and I do understand the connection between Iran and India, which is spread not only in Lucknow, but throughout India. Why? Because the leader of the Islamic Revolution, Ayatollah Khomeini, not Khamenei. People don't understand the difference between the two. First leader, the Rahbar, he was also a Rahbar. He was also the first person to establish the Islamic Republic of Iran was Ayatollah Khomeini. 1979 was the year when he came back from his exile from France to establish the region. And after his demise, Khamenei was his colleague, and Khamenei was the chosen person by the Guardian Council, which is it's a system of choosing the most important person. Now, Ayatollah Khomeini had his grandfather was from Lucknow. And before the British time, they had a system, Lucknow being a Shia, ruled by the Shia rulers like Wajid Ali Shah, Hyder Ali Shah, Nawab, who have built the kind of places which are still existing. Chota Imambara, Bada Imambara, all those attractive tourist sites that people go and visit are owned by the system called Waqf. Waqf is the land which has been given by the people of the region, and that is being done by the rulers at that time. Those were the real Shia rulers. So therefore, they needed a jurist. They needed a religious guide to do that. And for Khomeini's grandfather, Ayatollah Khomeini's grandfather was the actual person there, who was being my father and my many scholars, the Shias, had a relationship with the seminaries in Iran. When they qualify from the local institute, they go to Iran in a city called Qom to become the higher scholar, so-called ayatollahs, mushtahid. These are the structure. These are the old ancient structures. And therefore, there's so much mourning and so much grief is going on in India right now. And a 3-day of mourning has been declared. Now, this is a very interesting point because people should educate themselves. For God's sake, educate yourself. Read. Internet is open for you now. There's no, closed gate. But if you have to understand, you must read the connection. Connect the dots, as Sharath quite rightly has said, that throughout India, Hyderabad, South, North, India, Mumbai, they all have that kind of connection. And we do have a philosophy, an ideology, and that ideology is called the ideology of martyrdom, because the Shia religion comes from the martyrdom, the grand martyrdom of grandson of Prophet Muhammad, Hussein. In every year, the commemoration of Hussein has been commemorated worldwide, and therefore people do recall the grand sacrifice with his children, with his family, with his companion, that he stood alone, just like Khamenei stood alone with his family, his grandchildren, his daughter, his son-in-law, and many people have said that. Why don't you leave? The imminent threat is coming up to you, to your life and all that. We'll go down in the bunker and all that. He said, look, 900 million people in Iran can go to the bunker? No. So I represent them, and therefore I'll die. And we are Shias. We don't run away from the battlefield. We die with dignity. And therefore, that dignity is upholding worldwide the kind of these so-called powers in Europe, those who have got some courage, like the Spanish president and Italian now, the Prime Minister of Italy, they all are condemning this Israeli and American vicious attack. These are the leechers of the despicable low-class category, people who've been after Islam, Muslims, and, of course, Islamic Republic of Iran. They have no problem with the people like UAE, people like Kuwait, people like Saudi Arabia, because they are sold out kingdoms. They are not really a republic. They are not democracies. And therefore, the basis of their army bases exists there. And, of course, recently conquered, which has now been not conquered, but recently attacked, Iraq has also had American bases, which has been attacked by the Iranians as well. And they know exactly where to hit. They're not hitting willy-nilly shopping centers, schools, and all that, which Americans did in their first hit. So record that, understand that, know it, and then you open your mouth to do that. So it's a long thing, and I will continue. Perhaps the next program will be devoted to that, because the shape of the war is not going to quickly finish, because Iran has got a long history of fighting wars with enemy of Islam, with enemy of the nation, and they will continue to war. And whoever will come, and I'm sure that India will also be sketch in that kind of record, because all the shades and all the indications are showing, as Sharad has quite rightly has said, that it's an Indian cooperation which helped. I've received actually a clip a good few months ago by the Indian Army personnel who leaked that information. And with a absolutely filthy language he is using against Iran, to saying that, they will be killed like rats by the Yahud and America. And the kind of language he was using in that clip was just despicable. That's all I can say. Anyway, how did that information get? So they're working hand in gloves with the Indian Army, with the Indian people, and Indian government. Indian government have sold out. Bill Clinton, Bill Gates and Melinda Gates Foundation. Bill Gates and Melinda Gates, they were all in India going around in the markets, and I've seen all those clips and all that. Why? Because that is a subject for one of my research of a movie that I wrote called A Death by Trial. Now, Death by Trial, I wrote a film script about guinea pigs, Adivasi girls, people who live in jungles in India. Young girls, the vaccination was being used, had been testified for them, and they were used as a guinea pigs. And there was thousands and thousands and thousands of deaths of those girls. Why? Because they were guinea pigs. The experiment was going on in those drugs. And they've been fooled to say that these are fertility treatment. These are treatments for enhance your fertility, enhance your boobs, and enhance your womanhood, all that. So on the basis of lie, and obviously in India it's very easy to get the middlemen, bribe them, and recruit people to do that. It's started in my film. It starts with the city, urban thing where people used the servants. The servants in India. There's a lot of servants who work as a cleaners at home and all that. And every average person in India can afford those people. Hindu people who've been used as a target for these people. It starts from there. They die in the city, and then it's moved from city to the villages and urban area. Anyway, it's another huge subject that I will talk about at some other time, and Death by Trial, my film script, that I will one day will make it, because that subject is so pertinent, and Sharad has quite rightly has probed that subject. Anyway, time is really coming up, and I've forgotten to congratulate those who are celebrating Holi. Holi is another beautiful festival from the Hindu religion. And we all celebrate Holi, Hindu, Muslim, Christian, all of them, and has been widely celebrated in the films as well. So the time has just left for one particular song of Holi. So I wish you happy Holi, those who are celebrating, and enjoy Holi. And I'll be back next week. Same time, same place. I shall be bringing you more information about the war and who is winning, who is not, and ins and outs of this ugly imposed war on Iran. Hopefully Iran will succeed, and hopefully their by the way, their Rahbar, their spiritual leader, the news are coming through very quickly through the IRG that they have actually appointed the son of, not confirmed from the official channels, but the son of Ayatollah Khamenei, Mujtaba Khamenei, has been appointed as a as his replacement. But the assembly, which is the experts, assembly of experts to choose a new leader, may be postponed until after the week's funeral and burial of a slain leader, the martyr, the IRGC affiliated Fars agency has reported that it will be next week by the time the assembly will choose the actual replacement of that. But a lot of people are speculating on that his son, Mujtaba Khamenei will be the appointment person. But that may not be the case. So we'll wait until next week. And after the burial on Friday, tomorrow, it will be declared who will be that. Anyway, time to play the holy song, and bye for now. And thank you very much indeed for all the contribution done by Sharad and Charmaine, and of course the technical field here. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this particular track, and bye for now.
रंग बरसे भीगे चुनर वाली रंग बरसे और खिने मारी पिचकारी तोरी भीगी अंगिया ओ रंग रसिया हो रंग बरसे अरे रंग बरसे भीगे चुनर वाली रंग बरसे भीगे चुनर वाली रंग बरसे रंग बरसे भीगे चुनर वाली रंग बरसे